Good morning. So this is a session on advancing from the help desk to a system admin position, specifically a Mac system admin. I'm Brendan Lutz. You'll see by the slide here, I'm actually at Blue Apron now. That is a recent development for myself. I'm pretty excited about it. But it's so recent that even on all the documentation you guys have and my name badge is outdated. So been a Mac system administrator for a little over 10 years, been in the IT space since during college. My personal background, though, was actually in criminal justice. So I got to go through the steps of what it takes to go from a field where you're not necessarily being formally trained into advancing all the way up the ranks and actually training yourself and finding resources on your own. So just by a show of hands, I'd love to get an idea of what everyone's skill level is. So starting all the way from the top, who is very, very good. They feel very confident in their system admin abilities, and they're a bit of a guru who is really just here to heckle me. Do we have anyone? No? All right, good. Maybe just one. I like that. I appreciate that. Okay, so who is already primarily help desk but is stretching their role into a system admin position? Yeah, I had a feeling. Okay, so who is just a help desk person who hasn't been able to delve in, they've just been siloed within their role? Do we have any of those? One, okay. And do we have any people here who aren't system admins or help desk people and are just here to learn some stuff? What do you do?
I try to hire you guys to do whatever the client wants to pay for.
All right, beautiful. Okay, so I want to set the proper expectations for what this session is going to be. It's going to be a very broad overview of general things you can do to move from a help desk position to a system admin position. It's not going to be very technical. We're not going to delve too deep into a lot of terms, but it is going to act kind of as a guiding star when you're going through and trying to figure out where to go next, that you'll be able to pull information from. So I'm definitely not going to give you a recipe, though, for what steps to take. It's not going to be do this, do that, and all of a sudden you're dubbed a sysadmin. If you were looking for that, Dennis and Brian did a fantastic presentation. Oh, you're over here. You did a fantastic one the other day that I sat in on Mac administration fundamentals. It's a little bit more technical. They put a lot of good terms out at you and a lot of good stuff for you to learn. So if you didn't catch it, make sure to catch it once they post them all and review it. Okay, so why advance to an admin position? We have to ask this question of ourselves before we actually go down this rabbit hole. Is it something you're being forced into? Is it something that you're doing for the money, perhaps? Or is it just simply going to be your next step in your career and you're looking for the next thing? Perhaps you're just bored at your job and looking for something to entertain you with. Do you guys think he's going to get money from? No? No, I hope not. All right, and is it just a general curiosity thing? Maybe you don't even want to delve into sysadmin stuff, but you just want to know and you're interested. Or is it that you frankly just hate your users and you want to try and hide in a data closet and not speak to them anymore? Be honest. No. So the whole thing, though, is the role has changed. It used to be that you could sit there and say, we would hide in a data closet and we would grow the really long beards and we would be able to scare people off just by glaring at them. Well, I myself can't really grow a long beard, so that didn't work for me. But the industry itself has changed. Before, we were never seen whatsoever. No one really knew what we did. And almost all the equipment was kept in-house. We had our own data centers, our own switches, our own servers. But now we've transitioned. We're expected to be friendly. We're very customer or user-facing, depending on how you look at it. We're primarily still going to be help desk people. Now, people still don't know what we do, but at least now they think they do. So I'm not sure if that's better or worse. But the other thing we're losing is a lot of our internal data infrastructure. It's mostly going to the cloud or off-site or SaaS-based services. That means that we ultimately have less or more downtime away from hardware, and we have less of an area to go and segregate ourselves in. So now we are expected to be help desk and sysadmins. So the reality is, why are you doing this? Well, frankly, you've got to love it. You just absolutely have to be passionate about IT and about doing things better and more efficiently. And you have to love it because you're going to fail. A lot. And you're going to go through days where you've been sitting there typing away for hours and hours, maybe in command line, maybe launching a new Linux system, who knows. And all of a sudden, it's going to just shut down on you, and it's going to make you feel like this guy. I love this one. Imagine being the guy in the other cubicle. What if you had to carpool with this guy home? So, if we love it, how do we make it happen? What's actually our next step? Once you decide you want to take the plunge and it's not just someone asking you, hey, can you do this as well? Because everyone expects that if you know how to use the computer, you know how to do every single thing on it. So the next step tends to be people want to get a certification, right? So let's get certified. That makes sense. It's the proper path that people go down. It's what I did. When I first started looking, though, I thought, okay, an IT certification would be easy, or it makes sense because it's like a college degree, just more trade-specific. But once you start looking around, you realize, well, there's a certification in everything. I literally have more letters after my name now than I do in it from all the stupid certs. So, and that's not to say there's not a value in them, but how do you target the ones that really serve a purpose? So are they worth it in general? Well, they can be limited in their usefulness because depending on what your company sends you to get a certification in or what you get in yourself, it may only pertain to that one in particular company. I've worked with a couple of pieces of software 3 or 4 years ago that I've never seen since. And since then, that client left, and it just doesn't make sense for me to know all that information anymore because it's gone. So the other part is they're really expensive, especially if you start to do multiple. And what happens if you fail at it? Do you just keep paying until you get your certification again? Get that piece of paper? Well, the reality is that, well, how to put it? Companies may only pay for one class or one cert, right? So it may not be worth going for the cert. You may want to learn directly from a course and not worry about the certification if you're given the choice. The other thing about certifications is it's much like college exams or high school exams. Most people go in, cram for the test, pass it, get out the door, and forget everything they ever learned. Companies know that. They're not dumb. Everyone there went to school. So a certification on your resume doesn't necessarily mean anything. It can mean just as much to say that, you know, you're experienced in something, or that you have a vast knowledge, or you've played with it before. I myself, whenever I'm hiring and going through all the resumes, it doesn't matter if you have the certification or you just say experienced in it. I'll bring you in for an interview, and I'm going to ask you questions about it and get your feel for it. If you're very knowledgeable in it, that matters more to me than whether or not you have something that says certification on it. So when you do get the option to take a class, and hopefully you take it instead of just getting the piece of paper so you gain additional skills, do yourself a favor. Don't take multiple classes back to back. This is a very common technique, especially when companies say they're willing to pay for them, because you get to go out and you get to travel and sit through 1 or 2 or 3 weeks of courses. Well, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I'm sure you guys already feel a bit like that just from the past couple of days here. I know I do. Every year it's a bit of a brain swell. So try and convince your company to let you actually space those certifications out, or at least those classes. Come back, put a few of those pieces into practice, then go back and learn more. If you are required to go and do a bunch of them back-to-back because they simply won't spare you for multiple weeks, contact your training center. Most of the time you can get an advanced copy of the material just so you can glance through it and have a good idea. That'll save you a lot of time and headaches. And make sure to take plenty of notes once you're there and bring plenty of 5 hours or Red Bulls because you're going to be staying up really, really late. Okay, so now we've moved on from certification to the classes, but which class do you want to take? Well, when we're talking about specifically Mac sysadmins, it's really important to know things like the file system. All right, so it's going to be best to start off with something basic like Apple's OS X Support Essentials exam. That certification is relatively easy to get, but I highly recommend checking out their their #1 book. That's through Peach Pit Publishing. It's the official documentation. If you can read through that and answer 80% of the questions, then you're probably ready to move on to something a little bit more intensive. If you read through that, though, and you find yourself stumbling, really master the material that's in that book before you move forward. And you might be surprised by going through it. Even if you've been a help desk user or agent and been setting up servers for a while, there's usually a lot more info in there than you might realize. So, for example, I've run into plenty of people who don't know the difference between a system library and a user library. How does that actually interact with the operating system as a whole? What kind of troubleshooting steps do you go through? If one problem is system-wide versus user-wide, what actually lives in the user's library folder? Another thing, does everyone know what the difference between launch daemons and launch agents are? Yeah, no feedback. Nods, shakes heads, anything? No? All right. So, I mean, this is just one example question. In the short interim, launch daemons are system-wide that take place when the computer starts up. Launch agents are based on user login. So if you hit a login window, launch daemons will still be taking place. Launch agents don't actually start until the computer logs in. And that's just one example of something that you will use once you start pushing out configuration profiles and scripts and packages to different employees. Okay. All right, so once you've moved on from there, and you feel comfortable that you've made it through 80% of that book, no problem, then you want to start looking at general networking. Now, this isn't saying that you want to get too in-depth with things, but you do want to be able to know the difference between things like switches, routers, what's a hub, how does that actually function? What is a firewall? What does a firewall do? How does it work? Many of us know it protects and blocks traffic, but what's that really mean? Do you know what ports are? Do you know how traffic flows in between? And then, of course, you start getting into the fun acronyms. What is DNS? What is DHCP, AFP, FTP, any other 3 letters you can stream together? It's not so important to know exactly how to do these things, and I encourage you not to try and just pick one and learn all about it, because DNS by itself, if you go out and get the O'Reilly DNS and Bind book, that's about that thick. And you won't know it, you won't memorize it, and it's just going to confuse you. Just get an overview of how they all intertwine. That way, once you go into a different area, you can start troubleshooting and start getting a feel for it. Moving into acronyms. The thing about acronyms is people will speak to you and expect you, or at least speak to you as if you should know them. They'll speak to you that way even if they just made the acronym up. It happens. So I encourage you not to be afraid to do things like interrupt someone or stop a conversation and ask them just to explain what that actually means. You'd be surprised, half the time they may not even know, but the other half the time it actually will help you learn so much faster, and you won't have whole meetings wasted because a term was spit at you in the first 5 to 10 minutes and you didn't understand it for the rest of the time. People don't mind explaining acronyms either, because everyone has been in the same exact boat. No one gets offended, no one looks down on you, so don't be afraid to ask. And it is usually self-explanatory. Once you actually hear the name of things actually drawn out, it makes sense. AFP is Apple filing protocol. You can assume that, is it filing or file share? Filing? Yeah. So you know that relates to files in some way, and you know that's very Apple proprietary, as so many things are. Okay, so then we get into the really fun stuff, right? We get to learn terminal. That's usually the thing that everyone going into a sysadmin role gets really excited about. It makes you feel powerful, gets you excited. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing right now about learning terminal. Don't. And that's not to say you shouldn't be getting into it. It's more the fact that first, don't ever say the words learn terminal. This is kind of it's a pet peeve of many administrators who have especially been around for a while. It's not all that important in the long run, but terminal itself is a program. It is Apple's program. What it is it's a shell. It allows you to interface with the command line. People, when they say they're going to learn terminal or they want to learn terminal, it's a sticky point for the same type of people who get angry at you when you say OS X instead of OS 10. Do yourselves a favor. Don't let people look down on you for that, even though it's totally meaningless. So going into that, what is the GUI compared to command line? Well, the GUI, see, acronyms. Everyone knows what GUI is, right? Okay. So GUI is your trusty little saw that you can use very easily and you can do a lot with and be very crafty. And you get the job done. The chainsaw, it's probably going to get it done a hell of a lot faster. But it's a heck of a lot more dangerous. You can very easily within terminal and within command line, see I even do it, but within command line actually sit there and tell your computer to delete itself. And it will very unapologetically do that for you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I have done it. Be very, very careful. I put one space where I shouldn't at one point and watched an entire server implode. It's scary. That's why you get backups, guys. Always keep backups. Okay, so command line. So do we learn command line? Well, you don't really learn command line commands per se. You can, but it's not worth taking the time to try and memorize them all. There are hundreds of them. Hundreds of thousands of billions. The ones that are actually come pre-installed on OS X, there's only a few thousand, ultimately. but you can always add more, and the more programs add in, there's usually more command line tools. Fun little trick. Let's see. Let me escape out of this. Just to give you an idea. Which way is it? So to give you an idea on how many commands are just in there right now, if you hit Tab twice within a terminal window and hit yes, this gives you a list of the commands that are pre-built in there that you can just start typing out. Can you imagine trying to memorize all these, knowing what they all do? So instead of trying to learn command line as far as what everything is and all the different commands you can have, what you should be doing is actually understanding the command structure. Now there are a couple of command line courses and Unix courses here this year. I invite you to take a look at those as well. I'm not going to delve too deep into it, especially because the slide I had prepared for that got deleted. But essentially what you have is a command, the possible addition of a flag, and then what you're executing the commands on. Once you learn that structure, and more importantly, learn how to read the man pages behind it, you can do anything within command line. Man pages, for those who don't know, is the actual manual page for different commands. So, what we got up here? If you were to do a command like man zip, all right, man zip, you'll get the entire manual on how to actually use the zip command. And up in the top, it actually tells you the different flags, which are modifiers that you can use. You can read through sometimes the grueling history of the command. I will say this about Apple and their command line. It is pretty verbose in the manual pages, for the most part. And it's more verbose than most. The actual reason for that, for just a little bit of tidbit of knowledge, from what I'm told, is at one point, programmers were actually able, and developers within Apple, their engineers, were able to actually go through and close their own tickets and mark up their hours by going through and creating man pages. So it was a way to kind of pad their stats at corporate. So if you scroll down to the bottom of most man pages, you'll even get... Zip was a good choice. And zip doesn't have it. Usually at the bottom, you'll even get some example commands and some examples of different ways you can utilize different modifying flags within there. Q. So in that sense, it's better to learn the command structure, and then slowly you will build your bag of tricks. You'll learn a new command here, you'll look something up there, and you'll remember it for the next time you need it. And over time, you'll be shocked at how many commands you actually do know and how quickly you can string things together. But you won't know what those useful commands are until after you've been doing it for a little while. All right, so the other part of this is once you do learn the command structure and you start playing around with terminal, you get very tempted to do everything within there because you feel powerful. You get a lot of immediate energy from doing so. Don't don't do it too much. And the reason I say this is because when you're first getting familiar with it, you're going to want to do it all the time, and it will inhibit your normal workflow. You'll have a tendency to want to try and rename all the files in a folder a certain way, and next thing you know, it took you 2 more hours to get it done through command line than you would have been able to do it just by manually going to each file and changing it. If you want to do that stuff, do it at home. That way employers aren't looking down on you or thinking you're dropping off when you're really trying to advance yourself. So when should you be using the command line when you're still learning it? Well, the general rules are when the machine can and can only be accessed remotely, using it through command line, or what's known as secured shell, or SSH, allows you to do a lot of things a lot quicker than if you were to screen share in. There's a lot less data going back and forth, and you can do it over a much, much slower connection. So you should also do it for something that can only be done through the command line, or at least something that's can be done significantly faster. For example, if you wanted to get a list of all the file sizes of every file within a window, it's much easier to actually go into command line, type out the list command, and send that output to a text file than it would be to go into a Finder window, expand it as far as you can, take a screenshot, do another screenshot until you gather everything. So that's an easy example, but those are the times you should use it, even if you can do it within the GUI. Other times is when you're editingplists. If you're familiar with plists, then you'll know it's much easier to do through command line, or at least faster. If you're not familiar with plists, you're going to be. That's definitely part of being an admin. Listing file sizes and permissions. Oh, and watching Star Wars. Has everyone seen Star Wars through command line? Yeah? Let's do it real quick. I don't like not being able to see my screen. Oh. It's much more difficult to do it on a side screen. Does anyone have any questions so far? Yes. It hasn't changed a lot in the past couple, but it changed significantly about 3 years ago. Yeah, so now it's limited. I think they only have 2, maybe 3 certifications at this point. They used to have about 6 at least. Now it's more, you can be a support agent, or you can be I think it's ACTC is the highest at this point, which is the server side of that as well. It's just 2 exams now. They're still very worthwhile, but back when there was the ACSA, which is the Apple Certified System Administrator, there's about 4 tests to take for that alone, which also included learning about directory systems, DNS, image creation and deployment. If you are interested in those things, the 10.6 books from the ACSA several years ago are still very good. They're very verbose on information, especially in the Apple ecosystem. Some things are deprecated. A lot of the commands that would have related to MCX, manage control preferences, and doing things with the golden triangle are no longer used or useful, but everything else in there is still pertinent, especially the directory one, because Open Directory is part of the LDAP standard, which is also part of Active Directory and all those things. So check it out. And I had the link here. Maybe. Oh, there it is. Where is the mouse? Who can see it? Anyone? So this is interesting because what this program actually does is it uses a protocol called Telnet. It actually goes out to the internet and logs into a server of some very creative gentlemen who created the entire Star Wars movie in command line. It's scene for scene. It's incredible. And this is being done over IPv4. If you do it over IPv6, it's actually in color. So, is there a fast forward? That's a shame. Yeah, this is the boring stuff. This is the text scrolling. Who cares about that? All right, fair enough. Yeah. Hmm? Yeah, we'll get to it. Oh, yeah, see, now they're starting to fire. All right. All right, and then the other time you should really be using this while you're still learning it is when you're interacting with something that you'll be doing more than once, even on a semi-regular basis. This is going to be your pride and joy of automating your life. And it's much better than Automator. So some great resources for when you're trying to start out with command line. It's going to surprise you, but the Unix for Mac OS 10.4 Tiger book, that's one of my favorite reference books for OS 10's command line. There are some things that are a little outdated in it, but for the most part, it's all still very, very pertinent. What it's missing is anything that was added later. Not much has been deprecated from it, though. And then this book, if you're not familiar with the Take Control series by Tidbits, they're fantastic online ebooks, very worth checking out. This book is only about $10, and it's going to give you a lot of good background information on starting to use command line. The first one, you're not going to read through, you're just going to keep it on your shelf to look up commands. So, did everyone get a chance to copy that down if they wanted to? Sorry. So a few typing. Okay. So scripting. This is where you're going to be going once you get a good familiarity with command line. But don't get ahead of yourself. Learn command line first, get very familiar with those commands, because scripting is another ball game. It's not particularly difficult, but if you're not feeling 100% about your command line skills yet, you are going to confuse yourself. Now, the beauty of it is it really brings together the possibility of automation and being able to reuse those same commands over and over. The whole point of scripting is really just being able to string multiple commands together. It's not the same as perhaps a GUI interface program in the sense where you're going to be changing a lot of the variables, although you can technically do that. It's much more procedural. And within scripting languages, you can make them fairly complex with a lot of conditionals, if-then statements, and so forth. But the beautiful thing is really just hard coding some variables in there and being able to open it up, change one little line, and re-push that script out to hundreds of Macs or any Linux-based system as well. And that is also worth noting. Bash is the default interpreting language within OS 10. Bash, I would recommend sticking with that while you're learning it, unless you have a very particular reason to move on from it. The nice thing about Bash is it is on most Unix distributions as well as a Unix. Did I say Linux or Unix? Both. So once you start getting familiar with Bash within OS X, you'll understand how commands work within other systems as well. Not all the commands will be there necessarily, but a lot of them will. You also don't want to start learning more languages than you need to for scripting purposes. You're going to want to stay away from things like Ruby and Python, just until you get a little bit more familiar. They're much, much more complex, but they are incredibly powerful. The other thing is, don't try to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. While there's some value in it while you're learning, most generalized administrative tasks that you may be doing as a Mac guy have already been done by someone else, and someone has scripted them to the nth degree. So steal from them, or take parts from them and incorporate them into what you want or what you need, and continue to build on top of that. It's going to save you a lot of time. I'll have a list of some different places you can go to look for those later. All right, so once you have a good familiarity with command line and you've taken the courses you want to take, what's the next best thing to start doing? Well, you want to start working in a test environment. Used to be like this, setting up things, prototypes, and connecting 12 different unused computers so that you can have an enclosed environment that's sandboxed from the rest of your network. Beautiful thing now is we've got VMs. VMs are fantastic if you're on a Mac. VMware Fusion is good. Parallels is another great one. And you can split off your system resources and have multiple computer operating systems running right from within your own computer. It's very nice. They're all sandboxed, and you can feel very comfortable going through and messing with them, deleting files, see what happens. It's not going to be a big deal. And the other nice thing is once you set up 3 or 4 of those instances, maybe it's running OS X, maybe it's running Linux, maybe even you have some Windows in there just to see how you'll interact with different Windows protocols and domains. If you save snapshots of all those different VMs right when you set them up, after you screw them up down the road and make them implode on themselves, you revert back to that snapshot, you're right back where you started, and you can continue playing and testing. It's something I use on a regular basis, and it's even worth it if you have a couple $100 sitting around to go out and buy an old Mac Mini just for this purpose. Put a slightly larger hard drive, max out the RAM for another $100, $200, and you've got a beautiful testing environment enclosed in one tiny little footprint. Okay, so going to start moving into documentation. This is something that I know everyone has heard from multiple sessions this week, and it's because it is that important, and it is so critical and so crucial, and we all suck at it. None of us keep up with it the way we should. So one of the things you've probably been hearing a lot about this week is your site book, or one person referred to it as the in case I'm hit by a bus book, which I definitely appreciate. What will you do? So within a site book, you want to have basically all the things that you've done that if you are not in the office, someone else can reproduce your work for you. The other thing is we're all humans. We can't remember everything. We're not built that way. Even if we start out with something simple, and simple is a relative term. For example, having 300 Macs out there that all they need is Office installed on them is actually a lot simpler than managing one server that has DHCP, DNS, caching server, time machine server, blah, 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 3 or 4 things. I'll take the 300 max any day. But don't trust yourself to just remember what you have on those 300 max. Simply because you have one same password, let's say. Don't trust yourself to remember that password. Because what's going to happen is as you become more efficient and more effective, you're going to start doing more things. It's not going to remain just those 300 max for forever. Eventually, you'll go back and revisit and realize that your brain is about as trustworthy as mine, which is not much. And with that same vein, it's never too small to document. Even if it seems insignificant, you'd be shocked at the things that you come back later and say, oh, what was that one command? Or how did I clear the cache? And you spend the next 20 minutes Googling how to clear OS X's DNS cache. So the other thing it means is once you've been taking good documentation, it actually is going to free up your time so you can do things like call in sick or, heaven forbid, take a vacation. I know many of us feel like we can't leave because the place will blow up. Well, even if you're the only admin in an office, if you have someone who's relatively tech savvy that you can leave with the in case of book that only has very specific rules and things to follow, they'll be able to fix the most familiar troubleshooting issues you have in your office, and you can continue sitting on the beach without worrying about getting a phone call or simply check the phone in the ocean, presuming it's a BlackBerry or something. So the other thing it is once you start putting all that out there and you're able to take those vacations and you're showing that you're comfortable in it, it also shows that you're more in line with management material. It knows that you are trying to help grow a team, that you're trustworthy, and it just builds your credibility. So some tips for when you're making the documentation. It may not be you reading it later. It may be, and it may jog your memory, but it may not. So what you don't want to do is do a Cliff Note version, where you're simply going through and saying, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, do these exact things. You want to explain the steps. What is the actual purpose of these things that you're doing? Be very verbose with this. Don't cut corners. It's a great teaching opportunity, but it also makes it easier to fix later if something changes in it. So going into knowledge and sharing, or knowledge sharing and collaboration along these same lines. Actually, we'll get back to documentation here in a second, but let's stick with this. There is a tendency in the industry 10, 15 years ago plus that people would actually start building job security through obscurity. And what that means is that people would develop proprietary things in-house or scripts, and they would silo themselves so that no one else knew what they did. And this was seen as a way for people to guarantee they would still have a job, because if they can't fire you if the place shuts down without you. Well, that person's usually disliked. No one likes that guy. Companies like to feel in control of their employees. They don't like having a gun to their head. And you certainly won't be promoted or advance in any way. Eventually, they're just going to stop giving you money to do the things that you want to do, and you're going to be caught in this vicious cycle where you're not being allowed to go to get certifications or stay familiar with things, and then you need that job security, because if you lose this job, you can't get another one. So instead, we want to move into being with a transparent team. You want to work very collaboratively with everyone on your team, no matter if it's the Windows guy, the network guy, or any other division. That way, again, we get back to the idea that no one calls you when you're sick or on vacation. They know it. The confidence in your team grows. When the confidence in your team grows, you get to do additional projects. You get to be very adventurous and keep yourself entertained. And again, it promotes yourself as into a role of management or above. So, get into the next thing. You want to, well, recap on that. You want to be kept around because you're the best, not because they have to keep you around. Keep that in mind. Dovetailing from this idea are egos. Most IT departments have that one guy who thinks he's the big guy in town. And the whole industry's full of bloated egos. I'm sure we've all run into them at one time or another. Some of it's because of insecurity. Some of it's because of arrogance and the feeling that they need to prove themselves. Out there in the world now, though, there just isn't room for it. Believe it or not, the talent pool is actually growing. It's not limited to just the guys who want to lock themselves in their bedroom anymore. If you look around this room right now, we've got a great audience of people who want to continue advancing their skills. Companies don't have to rely on that person with a big ego. And people want to work with people who are friendly and are willing to share. So, again, be a part of that collaborative team. And you'll be surprised that once you start learning things, you can actually teach more experienced people new things as well. And if you're on that collaborative environment, it's a two-way street, and you're both going to continue to rise to the top because of it. So, all right, getting back to documentation. A couple of other quick tips about your death book or site book, however you want to look at it. You want to save an archived version of your documentation. Each and every time you make an edit or a change to it, don't just overwrite it, unless whatever you had was totally inaccurate before. The reason for that is you never know if down the road you may want to roll back from Java's newest update to a slightly older one because it broke all of your Java tools. You'll still need to know how to do that stuff. Or maybe you're going to, 5 years down the road, want to be really kind of retro and launch Oregon Trail on an old Mac system. You gotta know how to do it. The other tip I have is all of this information that I've been talking about saving in your documentation, do it within your scripts as well. Be very verbose in there. Add plenty of comments. Each and every line within your scripts, and this will make more sense once you start doing scripts. Add a descriptive comment that says what this next command does and why you chose it. It will make it easier to edit later. Other scripters and developers will appreciate your work because when you put it out there into the real world, maybe the open source community, other people can modify it and make it better without trying to guess at what it is you were doing. All right, so the one thing I haven't heard this week when talking about documentation is creating your own knowledge base. This is every bit as important, if not more important, than actually documenting your site book. Because this is how you grow. This is how you become better. And learning in IT is more difficult than in other fields. Because you can't just simply learn concepts and trust that you know it well enough. A lot of the times you need to know the exact words that were used, the exact command syntax. And how do you do that in an organized fashion? Well, you used to keep things in notebooks. I have several binders full of information that to page through. It's interesting, it's kind of fun looking back, but it's incredibly difficult to search unless you are manually writing your own indexes and table of contents, and that's very annoying. So then you start moving into word processors. Well, word processors have their own problems. It's very difficult to draw diagrams in it, or be artistic, or connect all sorts of different shapes. And even though things like Pages has come a long way and syncs over everything, Keynote, don't trust it, I'm telling you guys. But even with those advances, it's still not perfect. So for me, a couple of years back, I made the shift to something that changed my life. Evernote. Evernote, I mean, everyone knows Evernote for helping themselves in their personal life and keeping things organized, but from a tech perspective, this is amazing. You'll see me get really excited about this because I can't tell you how much it changed my life. Every single article I come across, every single command I come across, anytime I come up with my own set of strings that I never thought I could, or doesn't make any sense, I just go ahead and capture it into Evernote. I have one siloed book in my Evernote account that's called IT, and I create tags for every article I clip in there, for every command that clips in there, and all of a sudden you have your own personalized database of every command you've ever used, or seen, or thought of. It's incredibly useful. I can't stress it enough. So some examples of some tags I have in there are OS 10, Active Directory, and FD setup for doing file vault stuff. The beautiful thing about tags, unlike folders, if you're not familiar with tags, is you can continue to add more to your search fields so that filters these things down more and more. So you can start with OS 10, very generic, and filter it down to OS 10 and Active Directory, opposed to just Active Directory, which will pull up a lot of Microsoft stuff as well. Evernote captures all of your diagrams. It captures the exact web page as it is today. So that's a little bit nicer than, let's say, you just put a bookmark someplace, because you go back and revisit that web page, it may not be there, or it may look totally different. This way, you don't have to use the Wayback Machine. Let's see. So beyond that, yeah, I actually said that. It's also accessible anywhere. If you pay for the premium account, it's really nice because you get the offline cache into your cell phone. But even if you don't do that, you do get access from any internet browser anywhere, or the actual free Mac OS X app does cache all that information locally as well. You don't have to pay the small monthly fee for premium. I'm not a premium member, to put it that way, and you can tell how much I promote this thing, so don't feel like you have to be. So going beyond this, even a step further, this is great. There's a program called GeekNote. GeekNote, it's a command line tool for Evernote. Now, outside of just being, well, geeky and kind of fun to play around with, this is incredibly useful. You can install it on your servers. You can use it as a sync. It can become basically a really low-grade syslog server. Or you can actually sync history files or any text file that you have on your different servers. So I have a totally separate, professional-only Evernote account set up with a shared notebook that goes to my personal account, or that I can access with my personal account. And on all of my servers, I set up GeekNote. I go in there, I do work, and one of the things I do, after whatever set of commands, whatever script I run, whatever's going on, I export a copy of the terminal history. When you do that in terminal, it will print out X number of lines from your terminal history exactly the way you type them in that order, and it will automatically sync it to my Evernote. So now I have a record of everything I did. Well, this is starting to help me with that other documentation, because now I can go through, take all those commands out of that Evernote clip, pull out anything that didn't work in the history file, remove all the errors and all the mistypes that I did that make me look foolish, and copy and paste the successes right into my Pages document for my site book. Makes everything so much more streamlined. It's great. It's free. Check it out. Other things you can do to start building your own knowledge base. Start your own tech blog. Document your successes online, as long as you're not shy about it. You'll be shocked at how much good feedback you get about people whose lives you've improved or saved because of something you did. The other nice thing is that people will actually give you feedback on your solution. So maybe someone will take a look at your scripts or your ideas or something you did and said, you know what? You did this 20 extra steps for yourself. You don't have to do that. Cut this out with this one command. That saves you time there, and you learn a brand new command that's going to save you a lot of energy down the road for something different. Another great thing you can do. Get an RSS reader if you don't have one. Subscribe to other sysadmins tech blogs. There's a lot of good information out there. These are just a few that I've subscribed to over the years. Most people don't even know that Apple has their own RSS blog or RSS feed for tech K-base articles they put out. Keeps a good finger on the pulse for things that Apple is actually admitting is screwed up for them, which is rare. So I didn't want to list the full URL here, but if you Google any of these that don't have .com at the end, you'll find them very, very easily and quickly. But I use this as my general news ticker for all Apple sysadmin related information. I don't have things, Mac Stories is on there, but I don't have things like Mac Rumors on there because that just gets bloated with a lot of talk about new iPads that may or may not be coming out. These are very oriented to your work, and they will help you. Give anyone a second if they want to take a picture or anything. All right. So, continuing on with that, make sure you continue learning. Never stay stagnant, even on things that you've done before. I, for example, read the Support Essentials book every year for when Apple comes out with a new operating system. Even though I've read every one for the past 7 operating systems, you still learn new things, especially from Apple. They're always changing. So it's worth it. And once you know most of the information, you can skim through and you'll get through it quickly. But don't just rest on your laurels. Keep coming to things like conferences. This conference in particular is one of my favorites that I go to. It's a great community, especially for when you're still learning things, and especially in the education market. Continue to take classes. And, of course, try and find yourself a mentor. Now, mentors don't have to be tech-related. They don't have to be someone who's doing your exact thing. They can be doing something outside. Maybe they're a business mentor, and you're just looking for ways to progress your career a little bit further into management. That's very useful. But it's good to have someone you can go to and trust their opinion. With mentors, though, you want to be very careful, especially in the IT world, because there are a lot of bad habits that have been picked up over the years that you don't want to embrace yourself. So take everything with a certain grain of salt when you're listening to people and really be critical about it and check it out for yourself. It's good feedback from them, but don't just trust them when they say, oh, well, that's just the way it is, don't worry about it, or no, we don't have to document this, or it's not a big deal. You will hear it. Check it out, be a critical thinker. It'll serve you well in the long run. And also become a mentor yourself if there's anyone who you think would be interested. It's really nice to be able to teach someone something you just learned, even though you're not that far ahead of them. It makes you feel good, and it helps you talk through the explanation in your own head and further your own understanding of it. So here's another thing you want to do. Every sysadmin, as well as help desk personnel, should have a good tool chest of different applications they use to really make their lives easier. Some of them are command line applications. Others are GUI-based applications that run commands in the background. Here's a list of a few of the things I use. One really good one here, Wana. What that actually does is that gives you all of your command line manual pages. It'll put them into a web browser view, so you can actually scroll through them in Safari. It's really handy, a little bit easier to use, especially when you're learning. Cont'd up here is another one of my favorites. That is a fantastic screen sharing application. It uses VNC, the remote in, and it basically incorporates both the RDP protocol that's used on Windows machines with VNC in a very elegant way. I could go through all of these. They're all great. Most of them are free. The Apple Remote Desktop app is definitely worth it. I'm sure you guys have heard about it multiple times if you're not already using it. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife for the Apple community, the admin community. It works really great when it works. Leave it at that. The server app for $20, great tool for you to start playing with and learning about different services. It also gives you things like being able to remote into your other servers that are running OS X server. And the IRC chat client. Has everyone heard about the IRC chat room that everyone uses from Penn State? Yes, good. I don't have it up on the slide. I forgot to put it in there. But check it out. Most people around here know it. If you ever have questions and have spent at least 10 minutes Googling it, go to that chat room, plug in your question, and people will help you. It's full of really great admins around here. People like Greg Nagel and, Rich is in there. Dennis, are you, what? Steve Yuroff, yeah. So a lot of great guys. Hugely beneficial. And I wanted to leave with kind of a longer quote, but it's a good one that I just came across online while I was doing some research for this. And it's the same way you learn to program, and this is referring to becoming a sysadmin. It's the same way you learn to program, or play the piano, or dance the Watusi. Passionate curiosity and reckless experimentation. It's important to think about that. Don't be afraid to try things, even if you think it'll break it. Education and experience are both very valuable, but both of these are offshoots of a self-driven desire for knowledge. This comes back to the thing we said earlier, where if you're going to be doing this and going for a sysadmin role, you've got to love it. If you don't love it, you're going to hate your life. So with that, got feedback, good, bad, or ugly. Thank you guys, I would appreciate it. And any questions? We do still have 11 minutes, so. Yes. All right, guys, well, question?
Can repeat it.
Sure, yeah, sure. So I started off in college looking for a job, basically on campus, and I got hired into the tech center there, basically going around fixing projectors while driving golf carts. It's fantastic. But I got brought under the wing of a couple of really good guys who started showing me a little bit more how to move from just being a power user who knew how to use iTunes and iPhoto into the way things like the file system actually worked. From there, I got a great job with Apple, where they provide a lot of on-site training and continue to develop me in ways that I never thought I really could be in this field. And that is what allowed me to move my passion for technology from just a hobby into an actual career. So with that being said, everything I learned they provide me the opportunities to learn, but I had to go above and beyond to learn it myself. They didn't give a lot of extra knowledge. Now, outside of Apple, I've worked for a number of different startups, and I have done consulting work. I am a Jamf certified integrator who does a lot of Casper integrations. I've gone around and I have started now. Most recently, I was with a company for the majority of my time called Fab.com. I was their director of infrastructure. And now I am at Blue Apron for another startup. If you guys are thinking about the startup world for IT, it's a great time right now. They are really looking for people like us. It is a little bit hair-raising in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen with the startup, but there are so many around the corner that you don't have to be worried. As long as you continue to progress your learning, you will stay at the top of that level and still be desirable someplace. Any other questions? All right, you guys can go. Yes. Originally? Yeah, I mean, in one sense? Oh, Blue Apron? Blue Apron's out of New York. So our corporate headquarters is in Soho. And we have distribution centers, currently one in Brooklyn and another one in San Fran with several more on the way.
What exactly do they do?
Blue Apron? I don't want to do too much shameless plugging up here, but we're a company that essentially we deliver pre-packaged and pre-portioned ingredients with a recipe to your door in a refrigerated box that's all pretty healthy food or locally sourced. That way you can just open the box, cook a great meal that you otherwise never would have, and it's you never had to go shopping. Yep. Cool. Yeah, you guys can eat. Feel free to go. Thank you.